John and I, are the third owners of a house in the Nazarene University Park area of Pasadena on Breezy Avenue, named for the founder of the Nazarene Church, Phineas Brizzy. Better Breezy Avenue than Phineas Avenue. We purchased the land from the estate of Meta Bubakite. Their family left East Germany on the last train out of that area just before the wall went up and was secured. The last train out. 3 generations had lived here at 1212 Breezy and done much of the plumbing and other improvements, we'll call them. They've done much of these things themselves in the interest of, shall we say, creative and inexpensive problem solving. The clawfoot tub was not optimal for showers, so a shower was created in the backyard where the sons would draw a curtain almost closed, offering the neighbors some mild entertainment. The boy's grandmother lived and ultimately died of natural causes in a makeshift 4th bedroom on the back of the house, a room that would not pass muster in an appraisal now, although when we purchased it, it was listed as a 4-bedroom home. While digging up 2 poisonous oleander bushes in the backyard, we could so that we could qualify as a foster home before we adopted Peter. Can't have oleander because they're poisonous. We turned up an enormous amount of broken glass. There is a story there. We don't know anything about the first owners of the house, but assume they were Nazarenes. And we have yet to research who owned the land before them, and before them when it was part of Mexico, or what happened here before land ownership, when the Haha Magna, we used to call them the Haha Munga tribe, and all the signs have been changed because the actual name is the Haha Magna tribe. A branch of the Tongva nation settled the San Gabriel Valley and gave it a previous name. Land has a story, a geological tale, to be sure. The stories of earthquakes and debris flows, inundating storms and slow eroding time. It also records the legend of its occupations, animal and human, ancient and recent. Kim Stafford, in his book, Having Everything Right, describes the importance of knowing these stories. In his essay on the Kwakiutl tribe of Native Americans who lived in the Pacific Northwest, an area we have come to call Washington State and Western Canada, Mr. Stafford writes, "The Kwakiutl people of the Northwest Coast had a habit in their name. For them, a name was a story. We say Vancouver, naming an island for a captain. We say Victoria, naming a village for a queen. For them, a place name would not be something that is, but something that happens. They called one patch of ocean where salmon gather. They called one bend in the river insufficient canoe. They called a certain meadow. Blind women steaming clover roots become ducks. They call a point near Night Inlet hollow of the northwest wind. Even as they divided an island into garden plots, the people would not use their own possessive names on the place. One patch they called Small Round Beach, another Having Wind, another Place of Homesickness. When the tide went out, 2 islands were sometimes joined, 2 round things meeting now and then. When Franz Boas recorded these and other place names in the last decades of the 19th century, the first white settlers were just moving into Kwakiutl territory among the maze of channels and rivers at the north end of Vancouver Island. It's a shock to follow the active native names along the beach near Alert Bay. Trees standing on a flat beach, having coho salmon, sound of dripping water, having Grant Peace, and then come to the names of the new white tribe: cannery, courthouse, cemetery, house of white people. That does not sound like a white name, but house of white people. Stafford continues in the essay, I want to fight my way back in time, where the new names have not yet pruned away stories with a chainsaw. I want to find new stories and graft them living to the earth I love. I want to inhabit the Huacayudo place where someone grows up. I want to camp at the inlet they call to decline to answer. I would survive the place named where Tzo Nokwa cried out, "Oh!" I would rest by the river pool, eating straight down. But names on the charts have changed. In coastal sailing guides, directions for crossing shoals to safe water often carry the refrain, "Local knowledge is advised." Local knowledge is that story and place called insufficient canoe. The alternative to local knowledge is shipwreck. There are old ways and pleasant ways to avoid this for the solitary traveler and for the planet. We humans have issues around land. We have a history of imposing onto the landscape of our planet the illusion of territory and ownership. We forget that we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors. We borrow it from our children. We have turned a gift into a possession to be defended and used for personal gain. We hold a mortgage as if it is an achievement, only to discover in times like 2008 that it is an opinion held in uncertain times, even a liability and a falsehood perpetrated upon us by human institutions and assumptions. We occupy land, often without a thought to its story, and we are taken by surprise by human invasion or natural disaster, game-changing events that are as real and tangible as the soil, the liquid amber trees, and the cloud. Our biblical story this morning, which is one story with a repetitive chunk taken out of the middle of it, it's a land story. A real estate purchase in seriously unstable times. Jeremiah is being held prisoner in the court of Jerusalem, under suspicion of siding with the enemy, something of which prophets are often suspected. The city is under siege by the Babylonians, who will win and occupy the land for 70 years. They already occupy Jeremiah's hometown of Anathoth. Say that 3 times real fast. Anathoth. Okay. And the future is grim for these future exiles and casualties of war. There is a lull in the siege as the Babylonians turn away to deal with an attack from Egypt, an annoyance in the middle of a war, to be attacked by somebody else. During this lull, cousin Hanamel walks the 3 miles from Anathoth to Jerusalem and sells his field to cousin Jay, who makes the purchase in spite of the forecasted drop in real estate values, not to mention the existing occupation by foreign troops. It is an act of foolishness in the minds of business people. It is an act of hope in the minds of besieged Jewish occupants. The transaction does several things. By the way, there's one that's sealed and one that's open. The open one is so they can examine what's in the sealed one. So they go together. Oh, let's see. The transaction does several things. It gives cousin Hanamel the cash to escape and start over somewhere else. So he gets to get away. It adds credibility to Jeremiah's prediction that the Babylonian occupation won't last forever and the land will return to its so-called rightful owners. It is symbolic reassurance for himself and God's progeny that they will come home someday, truly come home. The name Anathoth comes from Anna, meaning woman, of Thoth, meaning home, heart, or hearth. My thought is with you. Anathoth, hearth's woman, heart's woman, home's woman. This is land I would buy in a heartbeat. A place to come home to, a story to occupy. Anathoth, where Jeremiah's parents, a priest and his wife, gave birth to a son, chosen from before his birth to be a prophet to Judah and the world. Anathoth, a walled town of some strength, seated on a broad ridge of hills and overlooking the valley of the Jordan and the northern part of the Dead Sea, 3 miles northeast of Jerusalem. That was a description on a map. Anathoth, a city of refuge, a place where someone accused of homicide could go and live without fear of retribution. Yet another story to be told here. The few Anathotites who survived the siege of Jerusalem were taken to Babylon, and after 70 years, only 128 returned to Anathoth, but they did return. The land of Israel has a million stories to tell. How many of you read Michener's The Source? I recommend it. Do you recommend it? Yes. Michener's good stuff. It's a fictional account of an archaeological dig in a tell to get a grasp on the depth and breadth of that landscape's legend. And those stories are unending, as the partitioning of the Ottoman Empire after World War I by Western powers, and then the creation of Israel after World War II plays out in wars and elections, terrorism, and settlements. September 11th, 2001 was a bloody reminder that our hands are not clean when it comes to land wars in what we fondly call the Middle East. We are prime players in that story, and we can judge Israel all we want for building settlements in Palestinian territories, but we might want to look at where we have built settlements on land previously occupied by Native Americans before we rush to express that judgment. We all occupy land with a story, a history. We live and move within that story. But do we own the story? We may think we have a right to this land we occupy, rights granted by a landlord, or a particular bank, or a certain sum of money paid to a previous occupant. We may believe that this real estate, that which is left after activity and occupation, depopulation and repopulation, exodus and genocide, weather and drift, have had their way. We may believe that this very real estate belongs to us. That belief may derive from our human need in the awareness of our mortality to preserve the tangible evidence of our having passed this way. We proclaim that this is our legacy, the land and its legend. But the universe will beg to differ. Even Jeremiah would tell us that God could care less where we live or what we own, even a piano, but cares very much about how we live our lives, how we occupy the space that we occupy. Our real estate is the soul, the population of our internal territories, God's occupation of our hearts and minds, our inner Anathoth. God's realm, according to our friend and role model Jesus, isn't really an external kingdom at all. It is a kingdom established through relationships with others, creating a beloved community, living a life of the heart, the thoth, being the hearth and home for others. That's the story we occupy, in which we live and move and have our being. This is the story that has the power to change all other stories being lived out on all that real estate. Let me leave you with a poem that I found on the Progressive Christianity website, so you know it's a good poem. And that website is Territory Worth Exploring. This is a reflection on Jeremiah 31 by Reverend Roger Lynn. It is tattooed on our hearts, etched on the walls at the core of our being. There is no escaping the real reality, and yet we ignore it, or deny it, or simply forget. I will be your God, and you will be my people. When will we begin to live like the covenant people?